Before this video begins, I just want to say a lot of the things that I am going to say are things that I've witnessed and interpreted myself. Things that I spoke to locals about, I was told about, and my processes being back in the States, and just how I feel about this trip in general. It was my first time abroad, and I don't necessarily want to say that I was sheltered. A lot of us growing up in America, to be, entirely real, and I've heard this from several people. It wasn't just my family, it's multiple families. Almost every American family says, why are you so ungrateful? There are children starving in Africa. And we tell our kids this, but our kids have no idea. I was able to kind of speculate that there are wealthier cities, there are poor cities, but even in the wealthier cities, they're nothing like America's wealthier cities. Absolutely nothing. And America's poverty-struck cities are nothing like Africa's poverty-struck cities. I've been home for a few days now, rekindling back with the people I love the most, spending time with family. I never want to say that I take the life that I have for granted, but I'm so very grateful for everything I have here in America. We don't even realize it. Observing a culture that is separate from our own, it's a very eye-opening experience. Being back in the States makes me feel greedy. We're fortunate enough to have the American dream, to have a right to do whatever we want, to be whoever we want. I spoke to a man who apprenticed in a hotel restaurant. He told me that he had all this ambition to go to law school, but with no opportunity to do so. There are countless Americans who say education is a waste of time, but knowledge even outside of a profession is intrinsically liberating. There are countless job opportunities, but most people don't even want to work here in America. Even just the privilege of having central AC or cold water. And I'm not saying any of this for Americans to feel bad about themselves. I'm saying this as an eye-opener. See the true realities of love and gratitude. July 6th. Am I here just to shake people's perspectives? I feel like people comfortable in their bubble of perspective, I scare off. But people who are eager to learn, they innately gravitate towards me. Do I push my own perception too much? Regardless of anything around me, I feel an inward peace, and I know discomfort is temporary. It's just meant to grow through. Each day on this trip has been different. I think a language barrier is beautiful. You can't argue with one another intellectually. You can't have misunderstandings, when the only thing that you do understand is that you don't understand one another to begin with. I think the most beautiful part of not being able to communicate is that you can only feel each other. And we cannot give much to one another except for faith and love. The rich are selfish, regardless of what they invest money into. Everything is for personal gain. This trip hasn't been about what I can buy or the pictures taken. The beauty of nature, animals, the people here, they are, some of them, stuck in a tradition, but they have this deeper understanding of their own nature. They're more human. They're more appreciative of the gifts that the world grants. I mean, farms not managed by large monopolies. Time to think. They have time to be. I wish that we could just break the intellectual cage that we find ourselves trapped in. Empathy, resonance, nurture, experience. We are only ingrained to what we're surrounded by, and we're shaped by suggestions, exposure. So the more we venture, the more we expand, whether it be culture or understanding people. We end up with too many options that just end up leading to nothing at all. Hence just existence, your core. Everything you perceive of other people will always end up leading you back to you. July 7th. Laughter is contagious. All energy is. Sadness, anger, love. And what is it with the social system implemented that makes this sense of freedom so hard to maintain? It's love, no distraction, no stress. Love is something so sacred. It's an energy that is so filling, so rich, that I'm starting to believe that love is God. Love for the past, the present, the good, the bad, family, strangers. Love is healing. Love is kind. Love is a greater blessing than money. I blew kisses to the children through the bus window, and they smiled, jumped, and laughed and kissed back. Giving them cash, they showed gratitude, but their response was not the same. People here in the smaller cities are so happy and full of life and welcoming. Tourism isn't the same as embodying and embracing and blending another culture. We have the same innate societal functions, but just two different worlds. And me, I hate being on a camel, not because I don't appreciate the view or the experience, but I wish camels roamed free. Instead, there's weight on their back and ropes in their mouth, and each time they step down a dune, they fall onto each other. It looks extremely painful. But I understand that people need to do what they need to do for survival. July 9th. Dehydration and no sleep make you a different person. Lacking energy, feeling empty. You almost have to force energy for your body to accommodate. Like when you're sick and you don't want food or water, but you need the nutrients for your body to function properly. Last night I felt silly, slipping into the pool inch by inch, cringing at the cool temperature, but I jumped in and I felt so amazing. I have to keep in mind that the strip isn't something that I inched into. I fucking plunged, and I can't take for granted how great it felt to begin with, soaking it all in. And this isn't over yet, but I find myself wanting to go home. We take things so easily for granted in my home country. I was using a translator app communicating back and forth with one of the hotel employees, and he told me in Morocco it was beautiful for tourists but bad for people there, and their opportunities are so limited. He wants to go study law, but he cannot get a transfer. Instead, he works in a hotel as an apprentice, making little to nothing. Most of the world is taken over by power-hungry tyrants. America is pampered. People are spoon-fed and take freedom for granted, and are too lazy to get an education when it's what people here dream of. Here, it seems like people are accepting of their fate. They are loyal to their country regardless of the conditions of work or perceptive freedom. And I'm mostly speaking in the older cities. I was also told that the Arab enslaved women and children, shipping them, selling them for prostitution, but the tourists have no idea about any of that. There's a lot of blind faith here, and it just reminds me of any structured religion. The people follow believing man knows more about God than themselves, instead of ever seeking God for their own sake. I find myself taking the small things for granted, like cold water or just my ability to travel anywhere. It makes me want to expand on every level. I want to take sociology and learn new languages. I want to take creative writing. I want to give people hope and teach people not a religious view, but a true purity of the soul. Limitation is hell, and we live in this hell. But to some degree, their limitations do not fully register until they are appointed with us Americans. A young boy whose mind seemed to be so wide, he spoke fluent English and accented more perfectly than some of the older, more successful men of Morocco. He told me that his dream is to come to America. All children, their look to us is like we are so lucky, and we complain about everything. And I just want to start traveling more often, live a little more, without wrecking stability or destroying myself. But we limit ourselves in fear of losing other people, not taking opportunities in fear of upsetting the other. People who are insecure about their own pain by doubting true love, ultimately repulsing them with action. I feel like there's some split. Those who are breaking free of societal expectations and fighting for the people's right to liberation. Control over people started with religion, but if people blindly follow without knowing why God implements these ways of being, then they won't truly understand what is good for them. Thus, they reject it. The less regulated religion is, the more people are able to truly transcend. And if people rather know the truth, the psychological, quantum level, energetical reality of alchemy and being truly spiritual, if they are taught without moral exemplars, no personification, they'd realize that there's really nothing to worship, rather something to harness. In this reality, you have to catch the minnow before you can catch the bigger fish. You have to understand the basics before you can understand the depth of what life really is.